Hello, and welcome to How It's Done, a podcast about how real people do actual things to move their brands and their businesses forward. From the simplest of tactics to the most advanced tools and technologies, we go behind the buzzwords to understand the how. Have you ever seen or read or heard about someone or some company that did something really cool and you wondered, yeah, but how did they do it? Yeah, me too, so here we are. Are you curious? I'm about as curious as they come. So stick around, we'll be curious together, and I promise we'll learn stuff. How It's Done is brought to you by Fuoco, a marketing agency that knows when and how to ignite the spark. I'm Christy Goad, and I'll be your host. Hello, thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited about today's episode of How It's Done. My guest today is Chris Dickey. Chris is founder and CEO of Visably, and I'm going to let him tell you more about that here in a second, and also a little bit about the PR agency that he founded, Purple Orange Brand Communications. We're going to talk about PR and the evolving role of PR and the different tools that we need in modern PR and modern life and modern media. So we're going to get to that with Chris. He's got a lot of interesting things to tell us about. Chris, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I have been a career marketing professional for the last 17 years. I've kind of had my fingers all over the place. I've worked in-house. I've worked with startups. I've been a marketing director. I've worked in publishing. I've worked in agencies for the last 10 years. And then just a year ago, I got into software. And that was a product of me identifying problems that needed to be scaled in the PR world that there were no solutions for. So we started a company called Visably. Visably measures and manages brand presence and search, especially across third-party platforms like PR hits, for instance. And it's a pretty interesting platform. I'm excited to talk to you about it.
I can't wait to hear how you got into this. I've had ideas in my head for several years now, but no idea how to go about diving into that world. Maybe where I'd like to start is, let's just go back to the beginning. Like, how did you even decide to start your own agency? Because that's kind of a big leap in itself. And I'm just curious how that started. And then you can maybe shift us into how that experience gave you the confidence to even go in this other new direction with Visably as an entrepreneur. Now you're a serial entrepreneur.
I know, it's scary. I'm wondering if I have to do this again at some point.
Probably yes.
Anyways. To be totally honest with you, I had a really amazing career as a young person in my 20s. I had an opportunity to start a business that is now quite successful. I was the first marketing and sales director for a company called Nemo Equipment that manufactures sleeping bags and tents in the outdoor industry. At the time, we were just a pre-launch company. I was a second employee, and now the company is doing very well. It has over 50 employees. It's one of the leading tent manufacturers in the United States. And then from there, I jumped into publishing and was its marketing and circulation director. And this is all when I was like 25 years old.
That's crazy.
And I was the marketing and circulation director for this climbing magazine called Alpinist, which I'm also proud to say is still around and highly respected, at least in the climbing world. And then from there, I jumped into the agency world, and I had this fantastic opportunity to work on a brand called Arc'teryx, which is it's actually based in Canada, but they're an international outdoor brand, leading. I think they do several $100 million a year in sales. And the opportunity on the table was for me to do PR nationally or in North America, lead Arc'teryx's PR. So, of course.
And did you have any idea what you were doing at that point?
I had an idea because when I was at Nemo, I had no idea at Nemo, but at that point I realized that the best, most efficient, most cost-effective way for us to get our brand message out there was through PR, because we just had no budget at that time. And I just figured it out, and we won a bunch of awards. I think Time Magazine at that point gave us, Best Inventions of the Year, and we were on the Today Show, and Men's Journal gave us an award. Yeah, no, all these things happened, and I was 23 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just started doing my own PR for this little company I was working for, and we crushed it. And then I jumped into publishing, and I think there's a lot of people who come out of publishing that go into PR because they understand the publishing side of things. So at that point, I had this really nice kind of mixture of experiences. I could jump in and handle this larger brand. And I also managed North American PR for a ski company, Atomic Skis. And so some really cool brands. I also worked for Jack Link's Beef Jerky for a while. And then at that point, I was still pretty young.
But you clearly must have some sort of natural ability or penchant for media relations. I'm wondering.
I just think I've been really fortunate.
It really is an art.
I've been really fortunate to work on some really fun brands. And I would say that not all brands have the same attractiveness to the media. And some brands, as a PR professional, you have to work so much harder for some brands. Let's just say that. With Arc'teryx,
I'm working in healthcare B2B. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough world.
That's tough. Yeah, I would have no idea how to do what you do. What I do, though, and what Purple Orange does, is we work in the outdoor and active lifestyle industry. So as you can tell, my resume kind of spans climbing magazines and tent manufacturers and brands like Arc'teryx and Atomic. I was at a young age. I was living in Jackson Hole, and I just decided the time is right for me to try it out. I had nothing to lose. I had no debt in my life. And I just decided, let's just see what happens. And I had a laptop, my kitchen table, and we started an agency. And so
that's awesome.
Here we are 11 years later, and we actually,
congratulations,
have done all right. And we have several employees, and we have our own office now. And the company's in a great place, and I'm very grateful for that. And, I think we've been very fortunate to work with just fantastic, really fun brands. But through the years, I've always been very interested in how do we facilitate meaningful connection with the right people, the right stakeholders. And during my career, I'm just 39 now, but as we I've watched during the course of my career a complete shift from a print media paradigm to a digital media paradigm.
Right, absolutely.
I hate to say it, but I really think newsstands are going to be a thing of the past in the next 2 decades.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sad to say that too, although there are some interesting print publications still going. So I like that. I hear you, and I don't disagree. Actually, several years ago now, 2 of my fellow PR practitioners, we were sitting around having a beer one day, and a couple of us had come out of newspapers. And so we were lamenting the demise of the newspaper. And I said, look, I think, 5 years from now, they won't even exist as we know it. And they're like, what? You're crazy. So I was wrong in one sense, but I think right in another sense that they don't exist the way that we used to think of newspapers per se. Hey, along these lines, can I also point out that there was a recent survey that I saw that said, so because of all these things, right, like media relations in and of itself, which is sort of like a big chunk of what PR is known for, is media relations, that it's getting harder and harder. And this survey said that of the PR pros that were surveyed, 75% of them said that it's getting harder, which was a 25% jump over the year before that, which was, I think, a 25% jump over the year before that. And so how do you think all that plays in, to the current media landscape?
I think I'll tell you what I think is getting harder. I think it's getting harder to do things the way that we used to do them.
Oh, gosh, that is so perfectly said. Yes.
Yeah. So we traditionally went out and we acquire all these clippings and we pitch journalists to write stories about our products and brands and services that we're promoting. And those mediums are, number one, there's less and less editors being employed, and they have bigger and bigger workloads. And there's also a fewer frequency to the publication of these things. So there's just less opportunities for PR through these traditional channels. But that doesn't mean that PR is dead or is diminishing. I think that PR has a tremendous opportunity. Here's PR's opportunity. When you boil it down, PR is fundamentally about leveraging third-party endorsement for the benefit of your brand or service. And that idea of leveraging someone else's opinion to sell or promote your product will always have a place in society, always.
100% agree. Yes, it's about influence, and you can talk about yourself all day long, but when other people talk about you, that's when it's golden.
Yeah,
and it's hard to measure, though, right?
Well, it just does. I think the measurement tools are getting better, and that's part of what Visably is. But I think it was harder to measure when it was in print because all we knew was circulation. We didn't have any data on who read the article, how much of the article they read, if there was any call to action after the article was read. Mm-hmm. All that kind of, we said, oh, there was this many impressions, but it was really not related. The impressions are not at all related to the performance of the article, right?
Right.
So
and
now,
you kind of, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I put those numbers out, or in the absence of more hard data, that might be one that we would include in a report to a client, but I almost feel guilty about doing it because, like, what does it really mean?
Right. And a lot of these PR metrics that are more common, like, for instance, in our agency, we have never used equivalent ad value, which PR professionals, for people who don't know what that means, but that's the idea of saying this is what it would cost to buy something in this publication if you had paid for it. So, but the problem with that is it's just not an apples to apples comparison ever. Number one, like the quality of the article, you might be mentioned. There might be one piece of copy that mentions your product or brand, or it might be a feature, right? Those are immensely different, but there's no way to account for those two. And furthermore,
and I don't even think that clients like believe that. Like, they're like, oh yeah, that looks good. So what? Whatever.
Well,
it's not like
who knows?
Typically, they don't then pump a whole lot more money into their PR efforts. In my experience.
Yeah, and I think what we recognize with our clients was that for the larger clients, they could afford just to say, okay, we're going to invest in a PR program, and we don't need to directly tie it to ROI. But for the mid-size and small brands that we work for, we work for a lot of early life cycle companies. They have to tie it to revenue, or they have to tie it to how this is moving the needle. They just have limited budgets, and they have to allocate really carefully. And that being beholden to the bottom line and being beholden to more meaningful kind of performance metrics was something that really bugged me as well. And that's actually a good segue about Visably. So where we came to as an agency is, and I'll tell you this one kind of anecdote. We won this big award in a major national magazine for,
what was it?
It's Outside Magazine Gear of the Year for a sleeping bag, and it's a full page spread. Equivalent ad value is around $80,000. The Holy Grail. This is they give one of these awards away a year. One.
Wow.
And it's like, it's supposed to be, this is the singularly best product in this category for the entire year. It is the pinnacle of what you can achieve as a PR person for a brand. And we acquired this big PR win, and everyone was ecstatic about it. And then I circled back with a client on that particular product line a couple months later, and I said, how's it going? How's that award performed for you? And they literally had just sold like a dismal number of sleeping bags, like something.
What?
Yeah, like nothing. They sold like nothing. And I think it goes to show a lot of the things, but fundamentally what I realized, or I was scratching my head, I'm like, how is this not moving the needle? And if this is the future of PR, we're totally screwed. And I went to Google and I typed in best sleeping bags 2017, because this is when this happened. And this particular endorsement or award was showing up on the second page of search.
Oh, man.
And what I recognized there, this little light went off my head, and I realized that the value of that endorsement had such limited or fleeting value if it did not live on through search. And because it was a print publication, there's no call to action. There's no way for us to measure. There's no way for someone to, it's not very sticky. Like you see it once, and then you put it on your coffee table, and it probably ends up in the recycling bin. Versus
let me ask you, let me just interrupt you right for a second there. Did the client also then, because what I find a lot of times with PR clients, if you get a great hit, then they don't do anything with it to market that. Like, then they don't throw that media placement, that endorsement, they don't throw it into their marketing channels and into their marketing plan. So it has limited value. They're not fully leveraging it in their own marketing campaigns. And I wonder if
they did integrate it, I think, to the best of their ability, but it was limited because they were a young company and they didn't have huge organic reach on their own. Like their social channels were not massive and their email list was not massive, and they were relying on the value of PR to amplify and reach new audiences. And that's where this particular PR hit fell short, very regrettably. And I think, ultimately what I came to realize is that if you're in the market for a new product, do you like drive to the supermarket and pick up a magazine and flip through it and hope that you find the product? Of course not. Like nobody does that. What you do is you pull open, you pull out your phone and you Google it, or you do it on your desktop. And that is a completely different customer. And I came to this recognition that the first page of search is the ultimate gold for PR. And if you can win endorsement that is showing up at the top of search for these kind of hard to acquire keywords, so jumping into SEO world for a minute, the SEO world looks at, they call keywords, any kind of search query is a keyword. And so somebody looking for a best sleeping bag, what you can derive from that customer. So we know there's 2,500 people looking every single month for best sleeping bag online or some derivative of that. So that's 2,500 customers potentially. Every single one of those people has a high intent to buy, right? Where else do you find that customer? Honestly, this is nationally, they're all showing up in one place at the same time, and their click behavior is very, very similar. They're going to click, 70% of the time on one of the first 5 organic search results. And, you can use PR to penetrate that real estate. And otherwise, using SEO to get in there is almost impossible, because it's for these high value keywords, like say best sleeping bag, that's like a non-branded keyword where that there's pretty decent search volume. You're basically displacing these really large media outlets, or you're displacing e-commerce sites like REI or Amazon or something. And it's just it just becomes like a glass ceiling, very hard to overcome. Where
you'd have to have tons of money to be able to do that, right?
You'd have to buy your way onto the page. You couldn't do it organically,
right?
Which is where PR has this huge opportunity, and that's kind of what I've been exploring as an agency owner. And then we kind of started scaling it with Visably. It was, how do we audit all these keywords for, number one, how do we audit them for PR opportunities? How do we see where our brand exists and how it's getting in front of customers? There's so many potential touch points in the search engine results page that are beyond your own website. I think that brand marketers have had this very myopic focus on how do I improve the value of my own web, or how do I improve the ranking of my own website, right? And they spend, a ton of money on SEO. When what we've seen as an agency owner is that they try to compete for these very valuable keywords, and they hit these glass ceilings on the second or third page of search, where they go from page 7 to page 2 rather quickly if they start putting energy into it. Then they get stuck on page 2 pretty much forever. And the problem with that is that the relative impact on your business from page 7 to page 2 is zero. There's still zero traffic on page 2.
That's an interesting fact. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm probably one of the rare people. I research I gather more information than I need a lot of times. So I'll probably end up on that 7th page and might actually click on that.
That is, you are the far outlier.
-%.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No one does that. You are the one person in the United States that does that.
Well, I'm unique.
No, good on you.
No, that's awesome. Okay. Well, so am I hearing you correctly then? You you said, oh, this makes sense. And it's brilliant. It's light bulb. And you started looking and you realized there was nothing really out there like that. So how did you then go about it? You started to kind of test out these theories maybe within your own agency, and then you saw an opportunity to carve that out as its own company or its own brand. Talk us through that process and how you did that.
Yeah, so totally. So, back to that example with Outside Magazine, that PR hit, although seemingly huge, and I still think there's always value in leveraging those awards, but you're to have to do it's kind of on your own shoulders, to your earlier point. We also were winning, blog hits, and they were smaller outlets, but they were performing really well in SEO. And our clients would come back to us and say, "What is going on? Like, our traffic has spiked. There's this one blog that's driving a ton of traffic to us." And we would reverse engineer it, and we would find out that blog was number one and number two in organic search for a really valuable keyword. And we're like, my God, like, the most valuable PR we're doing is not the stuff that we thought it was. It's actually the stuff that is showing up in search and is attracting all these really like high quality customers. And so we just like, how do we do more of that? How do we get more of those top 5 organic results using PR tactics? And it turns out that, if you focus on it, you can do it quite well. And at the time, I was like, I directed my team to start doing this keyword research and identifying, which keywords had a lot of opportunity for PR, which kind of goes down a different rabbit hole of like, there's really kind of different types of search intent. You'll find that some searches are highly informational in their intent, i.e. like what Google's doing is that it's elevating content that's click to learn. It's recommendations and reviews and things like that. And other types of content and for other keywords, Google will elevate transactional searches or click to buy, and it'll be a lot of e-commerce. And for those pages, there's really very little opportunity for PR. So we needed to quickly kind of identify which pages or which keywords had a lot of opportunity for PR and which ones didn't. So we did all this research, and we started subscribing to like SEO websites so we could get some keyword data back, and we knew like what the volume was, how many people were looking for these different keywords over the course of a month, what their engagement rates were, things like that. And we come up with these short lists. And then we would manually audit. We'd look through the entire page, and we'd identify all the PR opportunities, who was writing what outlets were showing up. And we do outreach to all those people. And we start building new relationships, identifying which websites are doing the best job.
Were you finding in doing that you automatically had entirely different targets than what you thought your targets were before?
I'll tell you a couple things that was really interesting about that is like, there were some predictable ones, but there's a lot of unpredictable ones and a lot of new ones that we realized these are under the radar websites that are crushing it with SEO and doing.
Is that because they're like highly niche in certain areas, or can you give us an example maybe?
I mean, again, back to kind of the outdoor industry, just, different. You might not realize there's this one website that I'm aware of called Switchback Travel. And it's like who the heck is Switchback Travel? And I was sitting down at a trade show with the affiliate sales manager at Outside Magazine. And he was well aware of Switchback Travel. And he's like, these guys, it's like 3 guys, and they kill it in terms of SEO. All they do is all these listicles. And they're at the top of search, and they're probably pulling in $2 to $3 million a year in affiliate sales.
Wow.
Just because of their search position. And all they're doing is collecting this traffic, providing recommendations, driving people back to REI. REI gives them a 2% of the sale or whatever it is. And because they're so cemented at the top of all these search, they're selling a ton of product. They're receiving a ton of passive revenue, and they're doing millions a year. And they were crushing Outside, and Outside recognized it. And, I think that there was no way to identify that an outlet was as valuable as they were without kind of doing this kind of like internet research and kind of really rolling up your sleeves and identifying these keywords and who is actually ranking well and doing well within your categories. And, the other thing that it provided was that when we were to onboard new people or like new employees to our agency, I think it can be really disorienting for a young PR professional because the PR industry is so relationship oriented, and you're just like, where do I take this story? And of course, there's like these, there's Cision and Meltwater and Muckrack and all these large kind of list building software solutions out there, but it still doesn't really tell you like who's writing what, and it's really hard to figure that out. Using search to identify your writers and your outlets is such a straightforward strategy. And it provided such straightforward roadmap for our new employees because they could immediately say, because on average, every single search result, returns 10 hits essentially. And so if we're looking at 10 different keywords, there's 100 people right there that are endemic, that Google has recognized their content is the most valuable content in this category in the world. And so that it just became like a very linear process for these new PR recruits to start doing really good PR work and getting to know people. So yeah, I think that list building aspect to recognizing that Google is already scraping every single website in the world and identifying it and, identifying who's valuable and like who has the most authoritative content and, on the web. And then they are elevating that into a really clean output on the first page of search. And if there was a way to scale that strategy of how do you mine all those contacts, how do you mine all those outlets, that would be very valuable for a PR professional. And frankly, you don't even need to do your own keyword research. Most clients will have those keywords already, because.
Well, I was going to ask you that, how do you settle on the right keywords? But it sounds like you rely mostly on your clients to already know that.
Well, we rely on our own. So we do our own research as an agency, but we also try to coordinate with our clients. Our clients, almost every, I think, client that's at a point where they're hiring an agency already has like a paid media program, right? And to execute a paid media program, you need to understand like what keywords you're bidding on, because Google is all about like bidding on keywords, and so they already have identified what's most important to their business in terms of bidding on keywords. And there might be some keywords that are that they'd like to bid on, but they're too expensive. So that entire list is actually really valuable for a PR set because we can plug that into our system at Visably, and we can do these audits and we can identify where all the opportunities are, and we can start working our PR magic to start winning organic placements rather than paid placements on the page.
I love this so much because you're so right. There's kind of the tools in PR up until maybe this point, and Visably being, it sounds like to me, a real breakthrough kind of, product, if you will. It's all the same tools. Every agency, large or small, might use the same Cision, Meltwater, Muckrack, whatever. And so it's really your ability as an agency and the people you have to be able to be the differentiator there. But, when you look out at other tools available in the PR space, there aren't that many that help you, think differently, do work differently or better, especially within the, ever-changing, almost daily changing media landscape today. By media, I mean everything, social, digital. Anybody could come on the scene tomorrow and all of a sudden be a huge hit in the blog world or on Medium or whatever, and, be getting all these eyes on them. And you might not know about it for a while, but it sounds like with what you're working on. And now, Visably, is that something that you are offering to others right now? Like, could my agency be a client of Visably, or I think I saw on your website that you're kind of beta testing it. Is that accurate?
We are in beta, yeah. So we're still very early in what we're doing. We've been in development for over a year. We just released the beta a couple weeks ago. The beta does a great job doing one-off searches. So if you want to do keyword research, if you want to audit a SERP for how well your brand is doing, if you want to do some list building kind of one by one, that's what Visably currently does. What we're building and where Visably is going and will be available this fall is a way to manage campaigns on Visably. So you can do these kind of batch uploads and do like, say like your client hands you a list of 200 keywords and like that's way too much to do like one by one. You can just upload all those keywords into Visably's campaign manager. And what we'll do is we'll do all the hard work for you. A really important thing that Visably does, which I haven't hit on yet, is not only do we identify where your brand exists across the whole page, but we also segment the search results by channel. And what I mean by that is that we have a list of millions of domains that we've classified as earned media, earned media, e-commerce, brand owned, or something else. We have about 12 or 15 classifications. And what you'll find is that the majority of stuff on the first page of search, especially that's commercial oriented, people are looking for products and brands, it breaks down between three things. It's either going to be PR hits, earned media, it's either going to be e-commerce, or it's going to be brand owned stuff. The nice thing about Visably is that we segment all that stuff for you. So when you put your keyword in and we get the results back, you can cleanly extract all of the PR hits using our platform. You don't have to sort through it one by one and realize this is the PR hit, this one's not, so on and so forth. You can just press a button and all the PR hits get pulled out for you, or all the e-commerce hits get pulled out for you. So there's different teams that are managing different pieces of the puzzle in search. I think what's so important to recognize is that it doesn't matter how a customer finds your brand so long as they find it. There's so many potential touch points out there, especially in search, but all those touch points are competing for the same real estate. And that is those like that top five organic results. So what we're really trying to do is provide brand managers or agencies with an opportunity to multi-channel manage what's going on in search on behalf of their clients or on behalf of their brand, and be like, oh, we have all these e-commerce opportunities which are under leveraged. A lot of larger brands will have relationships with the leading e-commerce sites in their space. And those e-commerce sites do extremely well in organic search. And there's this huge opportunity, which I feel like is very under leveraged, in which if you're not on the landing page for that, say you're looking for a courier, like a messenger bag, and say, I don't know, like REI or Amazon has, is number 3 in the organic search, and you click on it and you'll get this like page that has a bunch of like recommended messenger bags for you. You're very likely to buy one of those messenger bags that's recommended on that landing page. It's also a huge opportunity for brands to go back to those partners and be like, hey, we're not on this landing page. How do we get a better merchandising position on this landing page? Because that's another way to get in front of a customer, and to leverage Amazon's domain authority to build to create sales is a huge opportunity for people. So again, I think Visably has really huge opportunity for PR, has really big opportunity for e-commerce, really has opportunity for all these different channels that are outside of your own website. It's not to say that SEO, traditional SEO, the idea of trying to elevate your own website is unimportant. It's just really hard. And it's just one channel. And there's so many potential touch points. So might as well, take a stab at managing them all.
So is Visably like, some of these other things like a HubSpot, or, I would say any tools available that I am a certified partner and then I can resell that to my clients? What's your model for really?
You're talking about white labeling the data. Yeah,
Well, I'm just talking about, like I could say, oh, Floco, my agency, is a certified partner of, or we use, I could tout the fact.
I mean, we should do that. I love it. I know Google does that. I know that other kind of SEO platforms do that.
Would I just partner with you and then you would deliver?
We're really putting out a lot of educational materials, and we're rolling out a blog which has a lot of really great use cases and a lot of great research on it. And what I hope is that, number one, we need to educate people on why you would want to do this and why you would want to kind of analyze the search results page in this kind of format. And then number two is all the ways you can apply it, right? And I think there's probably many use cases that I haven't even thought of. But I think that, to your point, doing some kind of academy or training and official certification would be a fantastic idea. We're just a pretty young company. We're still just trying to get out the door.
Well, yeah, but I guess really, ultimately where I'm getting to is like, any PR professional or like a brand manager or a head of comms or marketing at a brand that may be listening today and be like, oh man, that sounds great. I got to have it. Or I want to invest in that to at least try it out, pilot it.
Yeah.
Would they just contact you and you guys sort of run that program for them? or how does it work?
Well, right now, Visably is free. It's visably.com. So it's kind of a play on words with like visibility. It's all about search engine visibility in my mind. I think, PR is a big, big piece of that pie, but there's other pieces as well. I think that right now, what we're trying to do is just encourage people to use it, tell us what you think, give us your questions. We're still actively changing the platform and kind of being nimble and adapting it. So I think we have something pretty good, but I think that we will continue to evolve it in the next several months. We have about a 5-month beta period lined up for ourselves before we come to market with a premium product, which will be quite affordable, especially compared to Muck Rack or Cision or something. I think we're looking at an entry-level price of $39 a month. So very affordable in my opinion.
Sign me up, Chris.
Well, thank you. I'd love it. Yeah, I'd love for you to be our first customer.
Well, let's just do it because I like to be first. So, and I don't mind being a guinea pig either, and I like trying new things. So let's just.
Well, it'll be month to month, so there's no big contract, and
I think we just sign a new contract. I did just sign a new contract with one of those big companies we've mentioned for the next year because I didn't realize you were an option. So I'm already.
Well, we're different. We're fundamentally different than Cision and Muck Rack. I think what they provide is a big media database and contact database, and that's we don't have that. That's something that they've developed over many years, and they have a whole team of people who are just calling people up and making sure that those phone numbers and emails are updated on a regular basis. Right. We're relying on a search engine to populate that stuff, and we do it in real time. So we're not maintaining that database. We're just looking at it. We're saying, as of today, here's who's writing about this subject, and here's all the here's all those outlets.
So do you see this as a disruptive, like is this a category disruptor kind of thing, is how you would view it?
I think ultimately they're complementary. I don't think it's going to change the landscape fundamentally, but I fundamentally think that we do have a progressive piece of the pie. We're doing something that there needs to be more merging between these different marketing disciplines. And I think, content marketing and PR have started to merge a little bit, but then content marketing and SEO are also very, very tight at the hip, as are kind of lots of other pieces of the marketing pie. And then, search, I just see search as this tremendous place for product discovery and for customer acquisition. And it's pretty much all consolidated under Google's umbrella at this point. Google has.
And how much does Google's changing algorithms impact this particular product?
It doesn't actually. So Visably just identifies what's being upheld by Google. Like what is bubbling up. We're not because we're being responsive to what Google is doing. I think the SEO industry, and that is the industry that's trying to improve the ranking of your own website, they have to be much more sensitive about those changing algorithms, because a tiny algorithm change could actually knock somebody off the first page of search.
Oh, totally.
A minute. Yeah. But we don't care about that. What we really care about is, what's being elevated today, and then, who's doing a good job in the space, and how do we build better relationships with those people? Okay. And so, yeah.
And so content marketing is still extremely valuable and important, correct?
Oh,
because we're doing a ton of that for clients and content development and helping them navigate those waters. But that is what drives SEO, ultimately.
It is. And backlinks.
People finding your content.
And that's what, that I think in the past, the SEO industry has always looked at PR as with okay, you guys are just professional backlink builders. That's what you do. And I think,
I love talking about it that way, though.
We have clients that their primary goal for us is just the links that we develop. And, it's if you guys get some people clicking through on the articles, great. But we're mostly interested in the backlinks. And because those backlinks will help their own SEO so much, and it's just so.
And they'll throw it onto their website, and just other people clicking, and that backlink in and of itself is that influencer, right? For Google, so the Google influencer, I guess.
Yes, yeah. So Google, there's this in the SEO industry. I'm not even making this up. There's a term called link juice. And it's the idea that,
oh my God, I love learning new terms, and I didn't know that one. Okay, great.
So link juice is this concept that, say, a larger website that has a strong position with Google's algorithm links to you as a authority in a particular space, and they essentially share their juice with you. Like they share their mojo with you. That's the way Google's algorithm sees it. Like Google effectively gives every single website a ranking. It used to be known as page rank. I think some SEO platforms call it domain authority, however you want to describe it. There's literally a number that Google assigns your website to how important you guys are over, in the scheme of things. And they also kind of identify which websites and which pages are doing well with like particular subjects. And they follow those links, and they identify then, how you're doing in relativity to everyone else. It's a big social network, right? Mm-hmm. And it's pretty complex, but that idea that you have these high quality incoming links from websites that are recognized as Google as important is the primary method to improving your own SEO. And then putting content that, jives with their algorithms and works well for the subject matters at hand is kind mm-hmm. of follows. But without those incoming links, that content will never be elevated because you'll never be recognized as an important website.
Well, it sounds like Visably could even be used as part of a research and strategy tool for developing your content strategy as well as your PR strategy. Would you say that is true?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we can. It's something that I mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation is the idea between search intent and the idea that Google kind of identifies. Google identifies three different types of searches, and again, the SEO industry describes these searches as transactional, informational, or navigational. And mm-hmm. the way that that's described is, like I said earlier, informational is you want to click to learn. Is you're asking a question, you're trying to get a recommendation, you're trying to learn something, and Google will infer the nature of your keyword query or your search query and populate click to learn results. And that's where PR has a huge opportunity. And then, or you type in a query and Google is inferring that you want to buy something. Even if you don't say buy in like the keyword, they're thinking this person actually wants to buy something. And they populate a bunch of stuff that's click to buy. And that's a lot of e-commerce, where the e-commerce teams have all this opportunity to kind of do a better job leveraging these other parties' platforms. And then there's something that they call navigational searches, which is neither kind of here nor there for like Visably, but it's kind of worth knowing about. Navigational is the idea that you know where you want to go, you just don't know how to get there. So for mm-hmm. instance, I want a DeWalt powerless drill, but I don't want to like type in the DeWalt website and then navigate to the website to try to find a powerless drill or a cordless drill. So you just type that into Google, and Google will give you like 7 links to like buy a DeWalt cordless drill, and that's called navigational because you're not looking for a recommendation, you're just trying to get there. So understanding those 3 types of search intent should really inform an SEO strategy and a content strategy, because I think what's important to recognize in 21st century, or like in like SEO in 2020, it's not about direct keyword matches anymore. People used to say, oh, like we're going to look up a keyword, it has high search volume, we're going to put that keyword in our press release, and boom, we'll be at the top of search results. Well, no. If that keyword is actually a transactional keyword and they're only elevating e-commerce related hits for it, you're not going to show up there, So understanding which keywords have opportunity for informational, and that's really like in the PR category, like you really want to exclusively focus on informational keywords. And actually Visably does that for you as well. So we identify informational versus transactional for you.
Interesting. So in terms of like, where you see PR as a practice, and an area of expertise going in the next 5 years, is that really where you see it going? Do you think that this? I think it's
an important piece of it. I think PR has so many different potential. like the storytelling piece is always going to be there. And, there's value in just storytelling by itself, even if it has no SEO value, right?
Right.
And I think
people love a good story.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to make an announcement, right?
Yeah.
And that's
you need a digital. Well, yeah, because you also need a digital footprint, right?
And you just need to tell people that there's a new CEO starting or something like that,
Right.
And PR that can do that and doesn't need to be SEO related. I think where SEO really becomes really important is for brands that are reaching consumers through search. And that search is a primary top of funnel marketing channel for them. And they're struggling to gain traction in it. Whether it's too expensive to compete for those keywords that they really want, or their website is just struggling to get first page visibility. And that's where PR can kind of step in and create this really amazing supplemental strategy. Mm-hmm. But, I think fundamentally what I always ask myself is like, how do we most meaningfully tell this story to the right people? And, as an agency, we just kind of picked up a new capability, which is working with influencers. And so we're doing a lot of influencer work. And again, influencer work kind of is PR because, again, it's leveraging third-party endorsement. Right. Even though there is some like transaction going on with like money.
There's some money involved, yeah.
There's some money involved, but you're still leveraging their audiences.
Right.
And it kind of, again, blurs between like what's paid and what's PR. But, our clients see it as kind of a more PR thing than a paid.
Okay, well, so in terms of predictions of the future, we talked a little bit about kind of where this fits in. Is there going to be a lot of education involved with clients on doing the kind, taking the kind of approach that you're talking about? Or do you think that the clients that, ultimately what I tell clients is, hey, let's not assume, like a lot of people, they'll say, hey, we need a press release. I'm like, well, tell me why. What are you trying to achieve? Because you might need a press release to just put the facts out there, but let's talk about what you really need to do. And then by asking those questions, we can help recommend the best ways to, like you said, to get your story out there, to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Do you just sort of organically get there with clients currently? Do you think that you're going to need to be out there a lot doing more podcasts like these, for example, talking about this capability and this approach? How do you see that?
In my experience, our clients all get it and they're all really stoked. And that was a big reason why I ended up pursuing a software solution like Visably, because I realized this was the most valuable thing we were doing. They immediately understood it. They were already investing heavily in search. And
they need help, right?
And we said, hey, we'd like to do this for you. And then we come back 6 months later and we'd show them the results and they would their heads would be blown. And they'd be like, wow, like that's amazing. Let's do more of that.
You have to be pretty excited about that too, right? I mean,
we were just this great petri dish to kind of explore this new practice and see if it worked without having to kind of like figure out product market fit, later.
So is that how you view it? Is it's sort of like a practice within your agency, or
it is a practice? It's not our primary practice. I think, there's so many different pieces of PR these days, but this is a big one. Mm-hmm. And it's one that I think is just at the very, very, very early stages of kind of being explored. And I think it has a lot of potential, both as like a media list building and also as like as a customer kind of touch point. So, and I think ultimately to your earlier question, like, do clients get it? The proof has to be in the pudding if you are presenting new strategies. And if the KPIs are there and you can prove the audiences are there and like you can show that click-through rate, those are the metrics that will sell any strategy in, especially because PR is so devoid of meaningful metrics to begin with. I think one thing that really draws me towards search is how tangible it is, what these results are. So let me give you an example of that real quick. We know right away how many people every single month are searching for any given keyword in the world. Those are metrics that exist out there. And so we also know by the law of large numbers, approximately where people click and what percentages within the search results page. And it's like this like logarithmic curve that like starts at the very top at like 30%, then drops into 18%. That's like the very first organic ranking, and then second, third, fourth, fifth, so on. And, you look at millions of searches and you recognize that this that this click-through rate pattern is the same across all different types of searches. And so then you can start to apply, how many people are clicking on what percentage of people are clicking on what page or what position within the search results. How many people are clicking or searching for that result. You can apply actual audience numbers, like this many people clicked on this result this month. And then
these are real people.
Yeah, these are real people, and these are actually qualified customers.
This is not ad value.
These are not like random people who are showing up who may be interested in buying your product or not. I think the big problem and another thing about kind of traditional PR is that you're capturing like a very passive customer, typically, like especially somebody who's reading a magazine or newspaper. They're just a lot of times it's like leisure focused. Like they're just kind of like flipping through it. They don't really have any point to why they're flipping through it. Anybody who is searching for that keyword in search is super qualified. They're the needle in the haystack customer that wants your product or service and is actively looking for it and is actively looking for recommendations. And so to reach those people where they exist, and that is in that first page of search, it's a completely different click-through rate. Like you have a much higher engagement, you have a much more qualified customer. So, and you can scale that strategy across many, many keywords, and all of a sudden you can reach 20, 30, 40,000 customers a month, where before you were maybe saying you're claiming like millions or billions of like potential, impressions, but who knows how many of those people were actually qualified customers? How many people
might have resulted in one going into your lead funnel.
Totally. Yeah. So just like, I think, the idea of quality over quantity is like really, really valuable. And customers will see it. They'll see it on their own websites. They'll see the traffic changes.
So exciting. I love that you're doing this. And I know there's the term search engine visibility. Was that a term before that you're leveraging, or you came up with that?
It's a term that I coined.
I am loving you more by the minute, because I love people that are able to coin a phrase, and you've done it there. It's brilliant. So did it just kind of come to you so magically, or? Matt,
it was just this idea, and nobody was measuring it, and that was kind of my frustration. I figured somebody has to be doing this, right? Like we're so sophisticated, we have such amazing tools out there. That is anybody measuring where your brand exists across the first page of search? And the answer was no. Nobody was doing it. And they were only looking at advertising, only looking at your own website position. They weren't looking at anything else. It was all opaque, essentially. But what I recognize as a PR professional is that there are all these potential touch points. There are all these points of product introduction on the first page of search. And if you could measure the likelihood of product discovery, that'd be really valuable, right? So that's ultimately what we do at Visably, is we measure the likelihood that somebody who searched for this term is going to discover your brand within this page.
Well, I think it's brilliant. I think you're completely onto something. You're going to be super rich one day, and maybe I was one of the first people to.
Well, thank you so much for the vote of confidence. I appreciate it
on this topic, and I look forward to working with you on this. Well, so I love to ask what I call a burning question at the end of all my podcasts. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we've covered the most compelling things that you were hoping that we'd cover today. Or is there anything else that you think our audience should know relative to what we're talking about, or even like the future of search or PR?
I don't think so. I think we did a great job covering it all. But do come visit us. We're at Visably, Visably.com. And we'd love to have you guys check it out. Thank you.
That is awesome. We'll be sure to include links on our show page and in our show notes, and ways to get in touch with you. I assume you don't mind people calling you. You probably love it when you're, maybe people don't call you.
An email address will be better. I typically don't pick up phone calls I don't recognize. There's too much spam out there.
Slide into your DMs. We'll put all your media stuff out. Okay, well, so this has been so much fun. I love this whole conversation. So I say ending on kind of a fun note, but I think the whole thing has been fun for me, and hopefully I feel confident our listeners will agree. But I have a fun question for you. And, we're talking about the space of search and the internet. But my question for you, Chris, is you run into Elon Musk. You become best friends. He offers you a seat on his next manned space expedition with SpaceX. First of all, it's going to mean you're 2 years up in space. So would you go? Who would you leave in charge back here on Earth? And what would you name the rocket ship if you had the opportunity to?
Well, I think I would decline. I would stay here.
Really?
I would. Yeah. I just, I'll tell you, I'm a big runner. If I can't run, I'm going to be unhappy.
That is a great point.
I have a young family. I would miss my family too much.
You cannot leave your family?
No, I'm not going to leave them for 2 years. At least not right now. All things, like everything else, like if I had to leave somebody in charge and I had to go, I would pick Bill Gates. I think he is an incredibly brilliant man who does a lot of good for the world and doesn't think about himself. So that would be my pick.
That's a great answer. He would probably help grow your business too.
Yeah, hopefully everything. Yeah. Bill Gates for president.
Yeah, that's a great answer. He has certainly given back in ways that, you don't see a lot of people doing with the success that he's had. So, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad that we found each other. I'm so glad you were able to make the time and share this with us today. And I hope that maybe in a year, maybe we revisit and see where you are and you'll come back on and talk about how you've evolved.
Well, thank you. I love that. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Okay, well, thank you so much. We've been here today with Chris Dickey, and thank you all for listening.
That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. We're looking forward to keeping great conversations coming your way as we grow this podcast. There's even more great content from our conversations on our blog. Be sure to check it out at growwithfuoco.com. That's grow with Fuoco, Fuoco.com. Stay tuned until next time, and no matter what, stay curious.